everyone here today, but Addie, no appearances that I know of. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from December 9th?
I'll move that we approve.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay, the minutes from December 9th are approved. Next, we'll get to unfinished business. All of you should have just received the ridership report in your email. So if you want to double check that now and pull it up, and we'll discuss that.
Yeah, just so you know, this meeting is being recorded now since that was being approved. So I think everybody agreed to it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I don't know that that's officially been approved by the council, but if nobody has objections.
Okay, I mean, I can stop it.
Reports, do you have any? Do we
Stop it.
wait or?
Your headphones aren't plugged in.
I think we all said we were okay with it, so.
And I thought they were all being recorded. It's just the fact is that they're not being put on YouTube, so people can watch at their convenience.
Okay,
That was kind of the issue I was trying to get at.
okay,
Just clicking one more button to get it up on YouTube, but I think they're being preserved as recording somewhere in cyberspace.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Okay, with that, Mark, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so if you got an email, I just received it probably around 5:30. I get a report from First Student. And so if you want to take a look at it, I actually sent some backup to it. So I didn't have time to do the loops, and then there's I think 5 pages.
Mhm.
So I just going to kind of go through each page a little bit, just so you have an idea what it is. The Monona Express, we're at 114 for December. In the beginning of the year, almost 9,000 down compared to 2019, which we knew was going to happen. The lift, surprisingly, was 365. So it was only down 139. That was only down 1,600 or something, 1,700 for the year. So people are using that lift. That is very valuable right now. So just kind of, and this is reports, the next page is a couple pages. This all comes from First Student. You can tell this is old school. We try to get them to computerize this, but it's all handwritten. A lot of it's handwritten. So I get a report. So this, like the first page, you'll see it says December Bus 1 Express Lift. You'll see that. So they break it down by senior, adult, students, passes. In each loop, they'll put how many people are on those rides. And then they summarize at the very bottom. So loop 1, AM is 1 and 3, and then he does 2 and 4 on the PM loops. And then the very next page is the Express Lift Bus number 1. This is how we reconcile. They reconcile back. I think this is like their cash, how they paid for it. So it's by cash, tickets, with that. So that should reconcile to the previous page. And then in the very next page is bus 2. Again, that's loops 2 and 4, and in the AM and 1 and 3. In the PM, as you can kind of look at the bottom too, I guess I should have went over the other ones. The loops are not, especially I should have talked about, and we talked about bus number 1. A lot of people are using some of these. It's basically 1 per day, up to 3, depending on 1 per loop. I mean, some are 0, so you can kind of see what's going on. And again, on the very next page, is Express Bus number 2, just kind of reconciles for that. Just kind of an idea how these all work and what we're receiving from them. And then we have another monthly riders report, second to last page. Again, that just reconciles what came in as far as money. And then on the very last page is the lift. So you can see, again, the regular trips, the seniors, and then there's regular riders. That means it's basically they don't pay the senior passes. They don't have the senior rates. A lot of times there used to be people who were downtown at one time, they get a ride back early or whatnot. So you can see it is getting used. Some of these days are up in the 20s. Even closer to, last week of the year, they're up to 22, 23. And it kind of dropped off before, New Year's. And at the very bottom, there's some numbers. It says total service miles. This is a lift. This is how many miles they're driving during a lift service or lift day. And so it does vary. You can see in December 1st, or that's day 1, December 1st, I assume. You have 10 rides. So they only went 45 miles. So it varied based, you'll see it's varied based on more rides and more miles with that. So it's very correlated with the two. So just kind of examples of what we get from them. And you see, it's very old school. Basically handwritten stuff. They have more stuff that they tie it back to, but basically it's all handwritten by bus drivers. We try to get them to do it on Excel, and they just don't do it. Oh.
Do you think that could be a request, it's sort of like a contractual component where they would be required to do an upgrade so that it would be easier both from their perspective and ours to have more streamlined record keeping?
Maybe put in the RFP and see what happens.
It doesn't seem like that's a big ask, in my opinion. So
No. So that's all I have is just kind of the summary and how it all works and how it goes to this very first page.
any comments about this team?
I just, I'm sorry. I don't think there's a whole lot we can take away during where we are. I'm sure I said the same thing what somebody did in the last meeting. It's just a sign of the times, but we can expect, I hope, a good bounce back in 21 once we get vaccinated.
I agree. I think that's the strategy, is we muddle through this as best we can, wince at the numbers a little bit if we have to, but also know that we're holding the service together so that when people are riding buses again, they get right back on this service and it's still running.
Absolutely. On that note, COVID-19 update.
I don't have much. I just kind of left it as a placeholder. There's been really no change from the last time. There's been no stop in service at all. Nobody has been on the bus that we're aware of that's had COVID-19, or the drivers. Drivers do get tested. They have been tested a couple of times. And also, we haven't had any outbreaks that we're aware of at any of the senior housing this time. I know last time we did in November and October, late October. We did not have any that we were made aware of during the month of December. By the way, it's been status quo since basically COVID-19 breakout.
Does anyone know, just off the top of their heads, where in sort of the tiers that public transportation drivers are in the COVID vaccination?
I do not.
I would just be curious to know.
That's a good question. I'll have to ask.
I don't know that that's been determined yet. So CDC made recommendations that were then distributed to states. States ultimately make the call. And we all know that the 1A list included you, people who are interacting with COVID patients, frontline healthcare workers, people in senior housing of a certain age, and then teachers are coming up. I know. And so what I don't know is when public transit would come up. Police officers are coming up soon. Firefighters are coming up soon. And I would be surprised if transit drivers weren't grouped. I mean, they're essential workers, so weren't grouped somewhere nearby.
Okay.
The new strategy for vaccine release is going to be changed when the new administration comes in.
Thankfully.
Which will cause a lot more vaccines to go out. And I think we're all crossing our fingers that the second doses will all be available 3 weeks later. That's the risk, but
Yeah, and I think, you did mention this sort of in a roundabout way, but they are sort of like, I am now a tier 1A, and they've now expanded that. So I'm a school-based speech pathologist, and they've now expanded that to school-based special education teachers, and then educators will be next. So they sort of, it's not necessarily adhering to the tiers. It's more like opening up the tiers to different populations. So
Sure.
yeah, anyway, I think that would be an interesting thing to know and just to prepare for, because I think it would be worth advertising that maybe in some regard to try to boost ridership. I wonder if people would feel safer knowing that their driver was vaccinated. Any other discussion on that item? Okay. New business, the RFP for 2023 through 26. And Mark, I know we'll get to it, but I just wanted to point out, so April Little is still listed as a city administrator.
That was just the old,
Oh, so this is just an example.
yeah, I just,
Okay.
just to show what the 2000, the prior one was, kind of asked if you could
Okay,
see the
got it.
prior one. So that's why I included that. So it hasn't been updated at all.
Okay.
Um,
So the fuel cost was another thing that I wanted to make sure was just updated for the purposes of this.
Yeah, so none of the numbers have been updated or
Great.
anything. It's just dates. I just sent out the last one. So kind of an
No
idea
problem.
where to get started kind of.
Great.
And that. So we'll get that updated for the next meeting.
Okay.
I don't know if people know what the fuel cost is. If it's a certain dollar amount, gallon amount, we either pay more or pay less. And this last contract, we probably, I don't know the exact numbers, but we probably saved a good $10,000 on the fuel cost number because gas did dip. So
Mhm.
at the time of when we did the RFP. So I just kind of put it out there. I don't know if there's any really discussion on that. If you just want me to update it and just put all the new numbers in there and everything and kind of go from there. I think the biggest thing will be hopefully all the riders do come back and we don't have to adjust the routes, because that will be something we'll have to adjust in the contract, is the number of hours and things like that. Otherwise, we got bids for, the bike racks, technology upgrades, things like that, and the new bus, old versus old buses were included in those. We
Sorry,
only-
Mark. Just to interrupt, Alder Goforth noted that there's somebody waiting to be let into the meeting. Oh, Jim's gone.
Yep,
Just, okay,
I just got it. Yep.
got it. Okay. Is it okay if we take a quick minute, Patrick, for you to introduce yourself, or is that all right, Mark, if we take a
Yeah,
quick?
go ahead.
Okay, sure. Go for it,
Hey there,
Patrick.
my name is Patrick Pula. I'm running for Monona City Council, and I'd just like to sit in on the meeting. Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks.
So I don't have much else to add on there. If there's any thoughts, what's in there, if there's stuff you want to start looking at to add, or
Okay.
like I said, the biggest thing is, I think it's going to be the hours. Do we want to increase them, keep them the same, or reduce them?
Is there a way to do a sliding scale of that, Mark, like dependent on circumstances, or does it have to be a set amount within the RFP?
Should be a set amount within the RFP, because that's what they're kind of basing their cost on, because they want to know what the route is and the stops are with that. So I think we need to determine the route for them, be able to bid on it.
Okay.
when does the new contract take effect?
It'd be 1/1 of 2022.
Okay.
The only
I
thing
was-
we need, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm just digging into details and I don't know if that's appropriate at this point, but I saw that it says that we like to have bike racks on our buses. I was wondering if we could make that not optional.
Sure, currently they do have them. The current bus system does, so we can make that instead of optional for the other ones if they want to bid on it.
I thought we had that as mandatory.
I noticed the sample RFP that was sent out says I'm trying to find it. I can't find it in my email, but I noted that it said it's optional or that we like to have bike racks on the buses.
Yeah, I don't remember why, but I believe it was optional.
That is the way I remember it, is that we made it optional, but we made sure there was an incentive to do it. And I think
Right.
some of what was going into that was it wasn't completely clear to everyone that they were going to be able to do it on that hardware. And there was, I don't know what that was. There were concerns about maybe it was impossible or something. And so the way I remember it is we structured it so that everyone has an incentive. I mean, they get more money if they do it, so they should do it. But we didn't want there to be some poison pill in the RFP that was just going to blow up the service if they couldn't do it.
Yeah, so there's a reason I know you said that. It was, the bikes, there was issues with getting approval from the state because, the bike racks could be in front of the headlights and things like that. So it had to be, if it was a certain size bus and the bike racks were going to be in front of the, if they're on the front, in front of the lights or the back, that was going to be an issue. I think that was some of the issues I remember now. Because the first student couldn't do it, and then they eventually got the bike racks on there.
Yeah, it was getting through that kind of first time jitters or shakedown or whatever idiom you'd like to use for that, because we'd kind of never done it before, and I don't think they'd ever done it before either. At this point, it really seems no drama, though. It turns out they can do it, and they did it, and it's all fine. So I wouldn't think it would be a lot of drama this next round either.
Sorry.
Nope, you go for it.
I also noticed, I had two other comments about it. Under marketing, I was wondering if we would want to add that we want to have the option. It's right now the marketing, it says something to the effect of that the buses just need to say City of Monona on them. And I'm wondering if we want to add that we get full discretion for bus wraps and advertising opportunities if we decide we want to do that, if that's something we would want to consider. Just so it's an option there. And
Well, and we discussed that a little bit at our last meeting. And I think we also talked about given what could potentially be limited space with the logo on the outside of the bus for advertising inside the buses as well. So I don't think that's a bad idea at all. And I think we might want to just make sure that we include various spaces on the bus for those types of opportunities.
Mark, do we still have the graphics from Greenleaf Media we had a picture that they made that mocked up what we want the bus to look like or what it looks like? We could just include that in the RFP and say, this is what our bus should be logoed or graphic to match our city, transit graphic standard or something like that. It would be an easy thing, I think, we already have it.
Great idea.
And maybe we can then reposition it too. So then we do open up a little more space for that advertising panel on the side
Yeah.
Definitely.
I do think it's important for us not to refine this RFP with one vendor in mind. And so these are let's remember that we're hoping to get 3 or 4 potential vendors.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be agnostic, I think, as a group to who that final vendor will be.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely agree with that. I have no gut feel for how much this kind of provision is going to stress anybody out. Our traditional applicants for this contract, are they going to look at that like no drama? Yep, we've done that before. Or are they going to look at that like, what is this? We've never done that before. And given that we get few bids, we don't want to drive anybody away either. So
I thought we got like 4 bids last time.
We got 3.
4, yeah.
3.
That's about it.
Prices weren't the same, but it was at least we got 3. I would say that it's important for our bus to have continuity with the way it looks.
I agree.
And I actually think that's a relatively simple ask. First student bought brand new vehicles to operate our service. and, customized them and made them match what was in their RFP. And I think 3 years, I think it was a 3-year long service or 5 years. I can't remember. God, I've been on this committee a
5
long
years.
time. That's about the lifespan of a bus. So I think that it's not unreasonable, I guess. That they,
Yeah.
I think it's worth a shot. And obviously, I guess I'm not super familiar with the process of an RFP, but presumably there'll be room for negotiation if that's something that's just not feasible for whichever company is likeliest to receive
Mhm.
the contract. Alder Goforth, did you have a second point of discussion that you wanted
I
to?
had one other, and it resulted from, remember, Molly, all the emails we got a handful this summer when our bus was caught in the middle of a protest.
Yes.
And we got some very angry emails from people accusing our bus driver of there were lots of complexities. Let's just say that. I think he was really scared
Mhm.
and didn't exactly know how to operate. So I didn't know if we wanted to have some kind of language because of adding almost like a training and supervision component to how to handle and operate in times of protests or riots or just unrest. It might be a forward-thinking thing to do.
there is a section on that. There's a training and supervision section. All we have to do is add a paragraph describing that scenario, I think.
I think that's a great idea. And we made this joke when we had this conversation about, the incident that occurred last summer. And it's not really a joke, but I think if you are a public transportation operator in Madison, you're going to have to anticipate that you will encounter these events from time to time. So I think that's a very thoughtful idea. I like the idea of including something to that effect.
Doug, what page was that on?
That is on page 11 of 19.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, the page numbering says page 14,
Okay,
but the heading is on the bottom of page 13.
go.
And I don't know if we want to extend that to a greater, D&I conversation or something to the effect of, unconscious bias training or anything else that we might want to include just to make sure that ridership from across our city feels welcome. And I welcome your input on that as a committee. So
I don't know how well equipped these companies are to provide those types of things, but
fair.
But if I knew more about what they could offer, I would be ready and willing to ask for it. It just depends on what level of sophistication they're at with training their drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Another technique we can use in the RFP is, rather than prescribing some level of compliance, instead just ask in the response, please describe what are you doing to train your drivers and other employees about unconscious bias and diversity and inclusion. And that might have the effect of, oh, we should do that so we can have a good answer to that question.
And maybe we could also say, if you, do you have an interest in adding these trainings to your, to your roster, or, do you have the capacity to add trainings such as these if you don't already provide them, just to get more information from everybody. I think that's a really good strategy, Andrew.
I do think it's a good thing because really this is the RFP. What's going to happen is we'll have the attorney draft the final contract, and that's where you want to put that in there. So it's going. So you get a response back then, and we get the contract to Bill Cole, and then he can insert some language in there if we feel we need to.
I like the idea of keeping that dialogue open. Before we get too far from it, Mark mentioned earlier just the notion of having to either assign a reduced number of hours for the potential service provider, or keep it as is. And I think it might be wise as we look ahead and just see how things go to potentially create 2 RFPs for each scenario, so that we're prepared to provide one or the other depending on how things continue to pan out before these need to be submitted back to the city. How do people feel about that?
Our RFP has kind of like, it's written with a bunch of options in it. And I think we could just look into how the options are worded to make sure we've covered the scenarios we want covered, Molly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Um,
Again, I know you have a lot more experience with this sort of thing.
Oh, no, I'm just looking at the document right now and, we're talking, some of the stuff that we're bringing up is like, oh, it's right here. But it may or may not match the current, what we're thinking currently for what we want to ask for.
As
Great.
far as
That's a-
that, oh, go on. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think that's a good technique, Doug, that even as the date we want to, put this thing out there for bids approaches, we may not yet have achieved certainty at that point about what the future looks like. And so instead building that uncertainty into the RFP and into the responses, kind of pushes that date out of when anyone would need to be more certain. I think you're onto something there.
Great.
Right now we give 4 options and they're basically different combinations of like revenue hours for each, for Lyft and Express. And then we have some alternates that list different combinations. It's kind of complicated. We might be able to simplify it. But there's another thing that's listed as an alternate, which is the smartphone app bus tracking thing. And do you guys want to have that be not an alternate, but as like part of the base bid now that we've had that for 5 years or longer? Like that seems like it's kind of part of the program now.
How about 4 and 5?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should be part of the base bid. I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd want to word it so that alternative implementations are welcome. Like I wouldn't necessarily want to prescribe by name brand, you must use Translock, but rather providing equivalent functionality.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, we already say Translock or equivalents.
Is that under the service description?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I was wondering if we wanted to go through that kind of line by line, just to make sure things were up to date like that.
Mhm.
I think that sounds like a good idea. Should we do that now? So we've already kind of covered number 4 and number 5. We may want to, do you think this is where the Excel tracking and ridership logging would go, or no? Just asking,
Yeah,
since we
I mean, I
discussed
guess
it.
that'd be, I know we talked about, this is where we want to put in. I know you guys talked about a better way, because right now you just punch. There's a better system of doing that. I mean, I don't know if that's a way somewhere to put in.
Yeah. And perhaps there are, apps for ridership tracking and things of that nature that would make it a pretty streamlined process.
Right. I would
Okay.
go with something for that.
I might suggest that we list that. That kind of changes, not the Excel spreadsheet tracking, but changes to the punch card system.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's,
I'm a little afraid we scare off our vendor for the last many years if
Right.
we try to introduce something. So I don't know about that one, but certainly they should be able to move into the world of the 1980s.
At least.
Hopes and dreams.
I'll get something for that for the next, add something for that.
Any other specific line items that people are noticing that they'd like to?
I guess back to alternative number 3, do we want that out now with the bike racks, or you still want that for the other services that might? Just want to make sure for the other busing companies that might not be able to do the bike racks.
I would hold the line on bike racks.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So
I think
that's
it's pretty standard at this point too. So I don't know that we would have the same concern that it wouldn't be feasible. So.
okay. I just want to make sure put that in just as part as the
Any other comments on the other components or anything we'd like added in?
You still want the new and used, one option for both?
I think that, I don't have a problem with that. I also think, that's it. As long as the integrity of the vehicles is fine, I think that's probably a good cost saving measure that we would want to consider. So. Other thoughts?
Can I ask a clarifying question about earlier when we were talking about changing our revenue hours?
Mhm.
What was the idea about reduced revenue hours?
Like if we
guess-
take out a service loop,
Yeah.
if we reduce
Like
the
we
number
go
of
to
hours
one
that they would be
express
working.
loop? Okay.
Sorry, Mark, did you have something? did
Yeah,
you
that's
wanna-
what I was gonna say.
Okay.
yeah.
Mark, do you know how many, would it just be half? Would be just half the 11.25 hours for the express loop?
If you cut out one loop or two loops? I don't know.
Right now we
offhand.
have the express listed as 11.25 revenue hours.
So that's for 8 loops. So.
So I'd move to 3/4 of that if we removed one loop in the morning and one loop in the afternoon, but
Right, so I don't know the exact number, would have to recalculate it, but yeah.
I think that it changes are, that's one of those aspects we would need to consider quite carefully.
Pandora's box.
Yeah, I mean, we've changed once in the 10 or 12 years that I've been on the committee, and it creates new opportunities, but at the same time, you lose some riders, and you're hoping that you gain some additional riders. So it's not not something that we should take lightly.
I guess the opposite side too, if we want to expand the route a little bit, because we want to add different areas, that's another thing we'd have to really think about too, before we. If you think
It's
everybody's
just
gonna come
alter
back
in
with the same-
general,
Yeah,
one way or the other.
not the decision needs to be made right now.
Actually, it looks like, I don't know if I'm just like, I feel like I keep saying that's already in here. But option number 4 includes a reduced number of revenue hours for the express service.
Oh, that's right, because we did try to do that.
So we have an option that removes a loop, at least one loop.
Yep.
Okay.
So
I
it's
don't,
kind of in there. It's all baked in.
and I guess I would ask, I don't foresee us adding in a loop, but I guess I would pose that to current frequent riders.
I don't know if adding a loop, it would be the thing would be if you want to expand a current, like say loop. We wanted to add just going the way we might add additional street in Madison or something like that, where it adds a little bit, but not adding a full loop, I don't think, like just.
Okay.
We want to add an extra 15 minutes to a loop or 20 minutes to a loop, something like that, because we think we want to
So
expand it a little bit.
do we have a part of this RFP, Mark, that kind of gives us a unit cost for their hours? Is that correct?
I mean, I have what they have right now. Let me get what we have.
Well, what I'm thinking is if they provide us a unit cost for hours, we should be able to weigh different scenarios as to how it might alter the fee, or at least the part that's associated with their revenue hours. And then if we want to evaluate different scenarios, we could do that as a group and then negotiate with the low bidder to adjust if we decide to make a change. So
I think we don't know what their rate is per operational hour until we get their bids, though, right?
right, that's fine. But as long as we get that with the bid.
Yes, they do give that. Like currently we pay $51.24, and they're breaking it down per hour, and we get the bid numbers back.
Mhm.
I don't have the spreadsheet with me, but I know I have the spreadsheet that breaks it down.
That's what I'm getting at is once you get the bids, that'd be the time for us to make any decisions about maybe tweaking anything.
That's true.
And then take that to the low bidder and say, we'd like to negotiate this to be, I don't think we would want to change it drastically, but it would be, I'm thinking of just a minor adjustment.
That's true. We would have to have it done by, there's a drop dead date for the state requirement, so, which is November, into November. So we'd be okay by then. Because we have to file ours for a grant, we have to give them our exact route and hours and things like that. So
Mark, just as a quick bookmark on page 10, number 5, there is a question about describing the training. And so that may be the place that we want to modify in any capacity to include some of the discussion points we mentioned earlier. And Doug, did you point that out specifically already, or I was just trying to give a.
There's 2 sections on that.
Okay.
There's the short section there, and then there's a longer section about 4 pages later.
Okay.
there's 2 areas.
Hey, Mark, on that page 10, where there's the 10-point list, I just wanted to point out that number 4 is missing, just an editing detail.
It's the staff section, but it's not numbered. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if we want to continue discussion or move on. I assume this may need some additional digging and, closer read now that we have some points of clarification or expansion that we want to
What
consider.
I'll do is,
Maybe I could make a motion to approve it with some adjustments that I could try to summarize now.
here, lad, I was gonna bring it back to the next meeting and
Okay.
take a
Okay.
look at
So-
the changes. Either way works.
I prefer the latter, if that's okay, just to have more of a finalized copy. And then in the
Mhm.
meantime, if anyone notices anything upon further inspection, or again, pursuant to this conversation that you want to include or amend, shoot the committee a note. Does that sound good?
It would be great to have a clean copy for us to do one last look over, so.
Agree. And Mark, if you can send that again, I don't know, maybe like a week in advance so that we can have some time to put eyes on it prior to the discussion at the meeting, I think that would be great. So then if there's no further discussion, we can move on to the marketing plan for post-COVID-19.
Can I just ask one quick question before
Yeah,
we leave
go for
that?
it. Sorry. Yep.
I'm just wondering, who were the 3 companies that bid last time? I'm just curious who's still viable, and do you remember? Was Badger Bus? Is it
Badger
like-
Bus, Co-Bussin, and First
Oh.
Students.
Okay, so kind of the 3 big players that we know of.
Yeah, but there was a big gap between the lowest bid. I believe like 20, 30,000, just in one week, or more. It was a big difference.
Interesting. Okay.
Thanks. So this next one for the transit marketing, I put that on here because I know we kind of talked about what we're going to do, what our marketing plan is, or what we can do to get the kind of a starting point to get people back once hopefully the vaccine gets out here fairly soon. We start seeing riders come back. So just kind of threw it out here. It's just kind of start the discussion on it and get started.
Yeah, I think, so we mentioned if our bus drivers are vaccinated, I think that would be a great talking point. Additionally, anything we could say about, our sanitizing
Yeah.
procedures, just to reassure people that it's safe and, we're conscientious of these things and capacity, et cetera. So I think directly speaking to our response to the pandemic would be a valuable thing to put out there. I know we've also kind of shelved the lift brochure, but if there's a chance to get some, physical marketing pieces of literature or, the magnets or whatever we can out again, I think that would be a good way to disseminate word about the services themselves, I guess.
Do we have a budget and what is the budget for those types of materials?
So that is one of the things I was going to bring up. We technically have 0 marketing budget.
Okay.
But we have unspent money from last year that went into the, since it's its own separate fund, goes into our fund balance. So we basically up to $5,000 that we really can spend out of
great.
Because we didn't spend any of it last year or
Excellent.
2020.
Mhm. And then,
I
you know,
think-
sorry, Mark, we talked last time as well about potential sponsorships for the wraparound. So like if Salvatore's Tomato Pies wants to purchase some space on one of our buses, for example, we could do something like that too. No pressure.
Yeah, no sales pitch there.
Sorry, heard that. I know I'm not supposed to participate, but I'll do it.
You wanna do like that?
Sold. Bus number one.
I guess when is the too soon to do you know, we do our free rides are always done in September, that first week after Labor Day, the week after Labor Day. You know, we talked about last year, we were going to do it. I can't believe it was, I think it was May.
Yeah, first weekend.
So is this something, you know, I don't want to, do we do something like that again? And when do we think that's wise to do that? I think that's, you know, it brings a, I don't know if you guys probably, especially Christy, I don't know if you've seen them all, if you remember those free rides and those, if you remember the ridership reports, they really bump up.
Yeah.
And they do carry over. We do, you know, we don't carry everybody over, but you know, we're up around for us like 40, you know, they're in the 30s. The buses they're jam packed. We get those free rides and it does carry over. I think we should do it, but when would be a good day to do it? I mean, I don't know when the vaccine's coming. I'd like to, you know, start getting stuff to, you know, get signs out there, things like that, and start promoting it a little bit. I'm not gonna promote it right now, but you know, is that something we want to do like in May, or is it something, you know, are we still waiting? We don't want to put that out there because we don't have the vaccine. Everybody's not vaccinated yet, I guess. Things like that.
Were those dates of May and October coordinated with some kind of national holiday, or because believe it or not, I just Googled that. May 16th is National Transportation Day, I guess.
Yeah. So May was going to be
And then there's another one in October. So those do seem like maybe good months. I don't know if though May is too soon, just given our circumstances and the super spreader, not
Sure.
the super spreader, but the stronger, you know, more contagious COVID just now. Kind of.
Well, we did it in September, and the council or the commission always did it because, you know, people are getting ready to go back to school, back to work after the, you know, summer. It seemed like a great time. We did hit it pretty good, I think, and we did have great feedback, and we had great analysis of the data. I mean, you could see it that those dates were working for us, and that's always been a standard. We do it the first Monday after Labor Day, so that's that full week there. It's standard. So last year May was going to be the first time. I don't remember the exact date. It was correlated with Sustainability Week or something. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I think we were going to kind of have it on the tail end of Earth Day celebrations as a way to be more conscientious about, you know, gas
They were
consumption.
gonna have
So
the drop off at the Huska Park and we're promoting it there. That was the plan at the time. But,
yes. I would say I really would like to do another free week. You know, we had a really long conversation about the benefits of doing that in a previous meeting. I think we could maybe plan on May, but just with some, you know, knowing that we can't really advertise in a hard and fast way until we have more information in the coming months. And I think, you know, we have not, I think holding the September dates are important just because that's been sort of standard. But May is a new ball game. So if we want to try to either put it on the tail end of Earth Day, or if we want to try to relate it to the National Transportation Day, which everybody knows about and celebrates.
Yeah, exactly.
Then, you know, maybe we can just consider May as a starting point for when we would like to look at that free ride week.
If you want the dates marked, National Transportation Week is May 11 through 17. And then the one thing I was going to comment on is doing the Monday after Labor Day. That week is typically Madison Bike Week. So it's a huge bike riding week around the area. And I know people who typically don't ride usually get out and ride because there's donut stands all over the bike trails. So maybe we would want to push it back a little bit later, maybe tying into that October holiday where it's a kind of seasonal transition, and you know, people are starting to think, okay, it's getting a little too cold to ride my bike. I got to formulate a plan for winter. I'm going to try out this bus and see how it goes. Just a thought. There's some other holiday in October I saw.
Halloween.
Transportation related. Yeah, we can all dress as buses. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever you guys like to do. Either way works for me. The only thing is we did pass, we did approve, like they have that, the commission did do approval of that to kind of set that every year. So I don't
Okay.
know how that works, if you have to do another approval,
Okay.
which that's fine with me. Um,
I do see it's the week in October. What it is, it's actually National School Bus Safety Week. So it's not really a direct tie-in, but that might be a cool thing to promote as well.
The tying it to Bike Week, I think, is a really interesting idea. I mean, that pitch of you tried biking, that was kind of sweaty. There's no more donuts. Now
Yeah.
try buses. I don't know. That could work.
I think it could. Multimodal transit thinking.
I think that's a really valid thing to consider as we get closer to that. Good idea. Anything else about advertising?
Oh, one thing, you know, trying to take advantage of our our newspaper and any free publicity we can get there. I did make the reach out to Jacob Swanson, the editor of the paper. So he said he would put it on his, you know, future editorial calendar. And so I gave him Molly's name and email, but I would love to share all of your names and emails with him so he could reach out to you for quotes and, you know, especially you regular riders. But that's a great way to kind of, he was going to do a story on, you know, our COVID practices and how it's a safe option. He did tell me he's desperate for content. So anytime you want something publicized and you don't have a budget.
I always laugh at the Herald articles with just like the full paragraph of white space after the article.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
were just like, don't know what else to say here. So
Jack up the font size like a half a point. Yeah.
They should give me a column.
Go for it.
Fill space. I have a lot of things on my mind.
digging in with Doug.
Commitment.
Digging in
It's a
with
big
Doug.
commitment.
Totally read that.
Agreed.
I did talk, just one last thing
Yeah,
on
go
the
for it.
working. So I did talk to Leah, and we did talk about, you know, once you guys feel comfortable, she was going to blast. We were going to put something together to blast something out on the city website and some of the things that she's able to do. The biggest thing is when we are going to feel comfortable doing that.
Mhm.
I think is going to be a challenge when you guys feel comfortable and the city feels comfortable is when we can kind of go ahead and start doing that. I don't know what that comfort is. I guess we'll have to find out. But so me and Leah have been kind of talking about ways that we can get some stuff to blast out there. So
Well, and it's never too late to just do a general PSA about transit and what services we offer, and here's a number to call, and here's how it works, et cetera. So I think if we can get some text, like an idea for a 1-minute blurb for that, I would be happy to record that for WVMO. Or anyone on the committee could be, you can go in anytime or do it remotely. I've done a couple over the phone during COVID. So I think that's something we could do immediately.
Yeah.
the biggest challenge is the social distancing on the bus. So, you can't only have so many people on there at one time. And then
Well, we'll just have to tell them,
the hardest challenge too,
wait for the bus. And if it looks too full, just hoof it back home.
I hate to say it. I almost feel like, well, maybe we can discuss it next month if you think that's a good idea, Molly. But it seems like May. I just don't know if the timing is.
I think
is
that's fair.
right. Because of the marketing lead time, we need to think of a month forward. And so I don't know.
Well,
Seems
yeah,
like a
and
stretch.
I'm totally fine with that. And I also think, if we're pushing back into October for free ride week in the fall, that gives us a little bit of leeway to push back, a spring or early summer free ride
Yeah,
week.
there you go.
there may be some identifiable moment that feels like something at the end of this, where we hit some threshold of vaccination, or they open the floodgates and let, regular category 5 or whatever we are, people get vaccines. I don't know, tying marketing and possibly even a free ride week to, okay, now it's really safe. Now we're beyond like Purell and we're on to, a sufficient number of people are vaccinated that we can be really comfortable with mass transit again. That would be
Maybe to a public order that regulates a larger grouping allowance would be, something to keep our eyes and ears open for as well. Sorry to step on your comment, Andrew.
That was great. That was a yes and. So I'm willing to be optimistic and open to May working out, but I guess I do share those concerns that in a meeting or two we're going to be looking at that and saying it's just too soon.
Any other comments about marketing? All right, I think then we can move on to 6E, the transit survey. So we kind of kicked off this conversation and a little bit at our last meeting.
Yeah, and the reason I put it back on, I think we're gonna look, see if there's questions we could think of. I know we don't want to put it out there right now just because there's no riders on the bus. I mean, there's riders, but there's not a lot of current old riders to get a, good feedback. But something I think we need to start thinking about what type of questions we were gonna start thinking about putting on there. So it's just kind of a reminder if we want to think of some questions or keep on kind of delaying it until we think, like you said, to the writers are going to start coming back.
I think it's not too soon to start hypothesizing about what we want to ask and what kind of data we want to collect. And I think we talked about some ideas last time as well, which now I can't recall off the top of my head. But if anyone has any ideas, feel free to submit and then we can include them in the minutes and just have a record for the future.
Or if you guys want to think some during the week or this next month, and we can put it out there for next meeting. Maybe I'll send an email tomorrow. Just so
Great.
You should assign us a little homework, Mark.
yeah, and that way we can have them for the in the packet for the next meeting.
Yeah, I like that idea. Does everyone feel
Just
like that's a good approach?
brainstorm it and just
I'm too tired right now to brainstorm.
I did come up with a few questions I could throw out just as a launch pad. I've done a lot of surveys, so I was thinking, what would make you feel most safe about to ride? Something real broad. What one thing would you like to see changed about our service? And maybe this is kind of a spin-off. What's the one thing we could improve, or what's the one thing we need to work on most? Something, kind of along those lines, just to get open ending and get them thinking about it.
Conversely, maybe like, what's your favorite part of the service? I think, just so we can balance out some of that concerns with celebrations kind of thing.
Yeah, love it.
What are we doing right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
We'll share a story. I was at a Quick Trip and their bus was there, and they were a lady. She was older and she was definitely in bed. She was having a hard time walking, and their guys got off the bus, put all their groceries onto the bus, and he saw me and they came over to me, and she thanked me because when I was saying something to him, what a great service it is. So especially the elderly, they really enjoy our drivers and things like that. So it was a great experience watching them do it, and did it with a smile, and they did a great job. And the response when I was talking to the lady was, she loves it. She loves everything about it. She couldn't stop talking. So.
That's a really good point to bring up, because it makes me think of one more thing in our service list is because I've heard that kind of feedback from folks who just love the drivers, the elderly who love those drivers. They call them angels, and they just go way above and beyond through First Transit. And I don't know if we have a customer service point on that list. But that's, I think, do we have that?
I don't know. I can't remember.
I didn't see one. So that might be something, because, you know, if you were going to kind of contrast that with, say, if you ride a Madison bus, it's a different experience. That might be, I don't know, you know, just that they have some kind of customer service training, or, you know, and how we like our drivers to be friendly and helpful. Because I think that would be a really jarring adjustment for our elderly to have a new service and having different drivers.
Andrew dropped some questions in the chat, Mark, if you want to kind of copy those down as well.
Okay, sounds good. I see them.
Any other comments or questions that people would like to share related to the survey now, or we can, if not, we can accept a motion for adjournment.
I'll move to adjourn.
Everybody raise their hand at once. Hey, all right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah,
Great. Everybody motions to adjourn and everybody moves to second.
Yeah.
So we're just put all of our names down. Patrick, thanks for joining us. Feel free to reach out to Alder Goforth or me if you have any questions about transit. Obviously, Mark is a great resource as well. So,
Thank you very much.
all right. Okay. See you next month,
Nice
everybody.
to meet you, Patrick. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
I'm looking forward to that column.
All right.